Hello and welcome back to Kart Racer Game Development Series. So we're just going to finish up our kart today. So we have one wheel, but before I duplicate this wheel and put it in the other spots, I just want to make sure to texture it first. It'll save us a little trouble down the road. So we created this wheel, we put it into position. All the rest of the car seems to be basically done. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into face select mode, and I'm going to go in and let's actually texture the wheel first. So I'm just going to scroll in with the scroll wheel, and let's see here. So let's select. Let's go with 3 of them, and then we'll skip 3 of them. Let's see if the math works out here. Nope, not quite. Okay, let's do every 4. Okay, so every 4 works out pretty nicely. Okay, oops, a little too close here. Okay, so that's a good start. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do Control and plus on the numpad. And you'll see what that does. It just kind of extends the selection so that we've got all those parts right there. All right. And I'm going to go over here to the Materials tab. And I'm going to create a new material by clicking this plus icon. I'm going to create something called Material 01. I'm going to rename that. Make sure you rename it because in Unity, it's going to help us to figure out which one's which. It doesn't actually matter if we're super perfect on these materials right now because we'll probably have to make adjustments in Unity anyway. But let's make them roughly the right colors. That'll make it a little easier. So we can call this the rim light metal, let's say. And then so with materials, you can set all kinds of properties. You can make it shiny. So for example, this is not a particularly metallic surface, but if we pump this up, it can be a little bit more metallic. We can also click on this base color here and change the color. I'm going to set this to a relatively light color, so a relatively light gray. All right, and next I'm going to select this face, and I'm going to do Control and plus on the numpad. And you can see that that kind of selects that whole cylinder there. And I'm going to go into the material properties once again. And I'm going to click on this rim light metal and click the assign button. And I now realize that I did not do that for the actual rim spokes there. So let's just try that again. I'm going to click on these 4. And Control plus, and we're just going to click on assign. All right, so next I'm going to select these back faces here. I'm going to make that a darker metal. Okay, so we're going to have to click on plus here, create another material. I'm going to click on new. And I'm going to rename this rim dark metal. And so it doesn't matter so much because it's kind of in the shadows. It's probably not going to be particularly shiny. I'm going to set this to a darker color. So not quite black, but a pretty dark gray. All right, and I think that it would be a good idea to have the tire. So we'll click on the tire. So let's say, for example, let's actually use C select here. And we'll just select, oops. Screw that up. Okay. Let's try this again. Okay. Oops. Now when we're in edit mode, only the current object can actually be selected. so I don't have to worry about accidentally selecting this car. But obviously I do need to be careful not to select any other parts of this wheel. This is going to be the tire, and this clearly should not be any kind of shiny material. Okay, using C-select here, working pretty nicely. Okay, make sure I got all that, and there's also an edge on this side, and maybe even also get this big edge here. Oops. Let's actually hide the car. That's going to make our job a little easier. Alright. Here we go. So we've selected everything now. Looks good. So we're going to go back in, and I'm going to create another material. Pick new, and we're going to call this tire. So now the tire, I don't want it to have a very high specular value, because that's basically the shininess of the material. So let's put that down to about 0.25, something like that. And I'm going to change the base color to essentially solid black. And we could add a texture and stuff and add kind of a tire print to it, but usually race cars have nice slick tires, so this might actually look alright. Okay, so there we go. We've actually textured our object. So now I'm going back into object mode. We can show our car again. Okay, and looking at it from top view, the best thing for us to do is to do Shift D to make a duplicate copy of this object. And I'm going to hit X so that we're going to just slide this along the X-axis. Let's put it in roughly the correct position. Okay, so about there. But you notice that this is backwards, so we're going to have to rotate this around. So again, in top view, that's 7 on the numpad. We're just going to do a rotate. I want to rotate this around the Z-axis, so I'm going to type RZ180 and hit enter. And you can see now we've got 2 wheels, and these have all been textured. So that's a good start. We still have to texture the rest of the vehicle, but this is a good start. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to duplicate this again. Before I do, probably I should have left rear wheel. I should make sure to name it properly. And I'm going to Shift D, and I'm going to push Y so that I can move this just on the Y-axis. So I'll move it up to there. And let's go up and take a quick look at it. Now it's obviously far too big, and these wheels are also going to turn when the car turns. So we're going to need to make sure that we have enough room for that. So first I'm going to move this in the Y direction so that it's roughly in the middle of this wheel cavity here. And then I'm going to do G and X and move it out just a bit to about there. And we're going to have to make it basically smaller in all directions. So I'm just going to do S just to scale, and then I'm just going to scale it down. Let's see what that looks like from the side. So we do want it to be a little bit smaller. That's actually pretty good. It's probably not in the correct spot right now, so we're going to have to move that to a better spot so that both tires are going to sit level on the ground. So we're going to have to move down, but this is a decent start. Okay, so now looking at it from top view, I'm going to change this to left front wheel. And we're going to do Shift D and hit X to move it along the X-axis. I'm going to move it into roughly the same position. And we're going to do rotate Z180 to rotate it 180 degrees again. And there we go, we got 4 wheels. We're going to need an axle to go across here. So I think the easiest thing to do is we'll just duplicate this axle. So I'm going to click on this object here. It's called rear axle. I'm going to do Shift D. And I'm going to constrain the movement in the Y direction. So we're going to scoot this forward. Can't quite see. I could have zoomed out a little bit, I guess. So we're going to do G, Y to move it in the Y direction. Now this almost certainly is not in the center of the wheel. So I'm going to turn on X-ray mode and see what this looks like. It actually looks pretty decent right now. So I think the best thing for us to do would be to select all three of these objects. I'm going to use Shift Select to select these three objects so that we move them all together. And I'm going to look from the side and see if I can move this to exactly the same spot. Well, as close as I can get. I'm going to do G, Z, and we'll scroll it down to about there. Now, underneath the car, we've got something that looks kind of ridiculous. It's just an axle just hanging in midair underneath the car, not attached to anything. We could add some additional geometry if we expect that this car is going to flip over. Personally, I'm not overly worried about it, so I think it's okay. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to leave it. I'm just going to be looking at our car from the top down. So anyway, it looks like we're doing all right. Okay, so now the car has been modeled pretty well. So next thing I'm going to do, I just forgot one thing. I forgot to rename a couple of wheels. So this one is the right front wheel. Make sure to name everything. And this one is actually the front axle. Alright, now we need to do the texturing for basically everything else. So in object mode, I'm going to just select this whole object here and I'm going to create a new material. And let's rename that the axle material. And down here, I will just set that to a kind of dark gray. It could be reasonably dark because I don't really want to emphasize this, this object. Okay, and it's set to not particularly metallic. That's okay. I don't really want to draw any attention to this object. Okay, so that's the front axle. And the front axle has needs to use this material. So now we're going to pick the rear axle. Again, I'm going to pick plus. I'm going to click new, and I'm going to create an axle property again. Again, I'll use all the default values, but I'm going to set this to a relatively dark gray. Okay, these are separate objects, so they kind of have separate materials. Okay. We also need to do that for the other two objects. So we've got the steering wheel, and we've got the main body of the car. So let's select the body of the car. I'm going to create, it has a material already. Let's rename this. I'm going to call this body. And just going to go down here. Let's make this a red color. Okay. So that sets the entire car to red. When we're in object mode, everything gets set to that one color. All right, now let's select, probably didn't name this properly either. So we have the steering wheel and the steering column. So again, I'm going to set that to a brand new material. And I'm going to call this steering wheel. And there, now that's set to a particular color. So I'm going to hide the car body so that we can just focus on the steering wheel for a second. I'm going to go into edit mode with the tab key. Alright, and we'll set the, for the steering wheel color, I'm going to set that to solid black. And furthermore, I'm also going to make it less specular because I'm thinking this is sort of like a leather or some kind of similar material. And then we'll have to override that. Okay, so zooming in here. So now in face select mode, I am going to use the select here. It's just a little bit big. And I'm going to select all of these faces. Didn't quite catch them all, so I'm going to okay, so that's all of those. Oh, this X-ray mode is making it a little trickier for me. Okay. So I'll make this sort of a different kind of metallic color, slightly lighter. Alright, did I miss any? Yes. Check all the little nooks and crannies to make sure we didn't miss any. Alright, So that looks okay. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to create a new material. This is going to be, oops, I click new here, and we're going to call this steering wheel light. And I'm going to click the sign button so that those are all that later color. So we're going to set that to a gray. And I think this is already set to a gray, but it's not a particularly dark gray. Let's make it a little darker. This is supposed to be the leather color of the steering wheel. Oops, I'm in the steering wheel light. Sorry, I clicked on this, but I guess it didn't quite work. Okay, so that's dark. And this one is a nice light gray. Maybe a little darker than that. There we go. Alright, so there we are. If you ever want to look to see what it looks like, you can click on one of these modes here so you can actually see, get a preview of what it's going to look like. You can see this very faceted object here. It's possible to smooth that object, but for right now anyway, this is okay. Okay, I don't love the wheels down here. They look like they're really super shiny. So I'm going to go back out to object mode with tab. I'm going to select this wheel right here, and I will multi-select all 4 of these wheels. Okay, I'm going to go into edit mode here. I'm going to select tire, and I just want to change tire so that it has a really low specular value and a really high roughness value. Roughness is going to make it reflect even less light, and just make sure that that's solid black. It is. Okay. Alright, so I think I might have signed the wrong. I think I signed the wrong faces to this. That's kind of unfortunate. Alright, so that's okay. So we'll switch out into object mode again. Let's bring the car body back. You can see that it's red. It's very, very red. Okay, so let's go back into object mode. I don't think we want this entire car to be red. So let's try to make the interior of this vehicle look a little nicer. Okay, so for starters, let's select, oops. So what we're going to do is I am going to select, do I have the wrong object selected? Perhaps I do. Yes, I do. Okay, so you got to select the car body, hit tab to go into edit mode, and I'm just going to select all the faces for the spoiler. Including the bottom. It's a bit of tight squeeze in here. Okay, so there we go. We've selected all the faces for the spoiler. So I'm going to add a new material. So we're going to call this spoiler. And we'll set this to black, let's say. And then we'll just do a sign. What if maybe we'll make this a stripe right here? Let's actually make this a stripe. So we'll set this as a spoiler accent color. Okay, so we're going to create another material. We're going to call it spoiler accent. And we're going to do a sign. Okay. And I suppose these brackets as well should have their own material. So I'm going to create a new material here. Call this. And we'll do a sign. And we'll set that to a black as well. Alright. So the interior of the car should probably also have a different appearance. Okay. I don't know if I like this little seam here. I did it a very different way in the practice turn. So. Okay, so I'm thinking interior to the car. We're going to have sort of an interior material and maybe a seat material. So the seat will be sort of the padded area of the interior of the car, and the other one will be like the trim inside the vehicle. So let's do that first. So we'll do the seat first. These are just to use the button here. I think even inside the groove should be just fine. Okay. And I think this part up here as well. Alright, so I'm going to create another material. I'm going to call this seat. Click assign. And that's also going to be black. And I really want that to have a relatively low specular color. We'll leave the roughness value the way it is. Alright, now the interior. So we're going to say all of these interior pieces here. Alright, let's hide the steering wheel. Make our job a little bit easier. Doesn't matter too much. Oops, I have a tiny little face in here. And these ones too, I suppose. Okay, so we'll create another material. We'll call this, oops, interior trim. We'll pick a sign, and that's going to be black as well. Well, not black, maybe a very dark gray. Get a little contrast going. Alright. So let's deselect. Take a quick peek. So we got a little red strip in there because apparently I missed some stuff that are not super easy to see. Now that I see it, I should be able to take care of that, no problem. Alright, so let's select all of these. And this should probably be the interior trim. Now that we've created the materials, it's just a matter of assigning these faces to that material. Okay, so I can pick interior trim, assign. And we missed a few here. Just do this one, and interior trim, assign. Looks pretty good. And we'll deselect everything. Looks like there's another one over here. Can I select it? That's the question. Yes. Okay, so going down here, interior trim, assign. Okay. Alright, that stripe kind of looks ridiculous. Alright, let's do spoiler accent. What if the spoiler accent is red, perhaps? Maybe not quite as ridiculous. Alright, well, you know, we'll have to play around with that. That particular color is not the nicest. Okay. As I said, I'm not a designer, so this is terrible. Okay, so getting out of edit mode then. Definitely messed up these wheels, and that's unfortunate because that was the whole point of waiting until we had everything styled. And that's okay. So what I'm going to do is go into edit mode here. Let's pick this one, this one, this one. Actually, let's pick all the front 4. Use the same trick we used last time. Control plus on the numpad, and we are going to just set that to light metal. And this one here, we're going to do Control plus, light metal assign, and just do the backgrounds. So the back of the rim should be dark. It's in shadow. Plus it's probably frequently made of a different kind of material. Painted. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to pick rim dark metal. I'm going to do assign. Okay, that's definitely worked. It looks like that it's really just the tire and the interior that's incorrect on these wheels. Kind of unfortunate that I messed it up so bad. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's now, is there a way that I can cheat my way through this? No, not exactly. Okay, so let's actually hide the car. We'll bring this into our focus here. And we'll just use C-select to select everything that we can see on the front here. Oops. I always forget. Get out of C-select mode. Okay, so then we're going to do C-select again. Keep on selecting. Okay, looks like we have selected all of the tire. Hopefully. I'm going to select tire, pick assign, and there we go. Okay, so that looks pretty decent. Not too bad anyway. Alright, so now just to repeat let's do it with the small one. So we didn't really need to change the interior. So just going to exit out, object mode, select this object, go into edit mode. And I'm going to select these four, these four, these four, and these four. I'm going to pick dark metal, assign, there we go. And then I'm going to do C-select, oops, gotta unselect everything first. C-select. Make sure to select the little bevel edges that we made last time. Okay, I have a feeling we missed some. There we go. And I did miss one. There we go. Okay, so we're going to select tire, do assign. Now, I don't want you to watch me do that a second time. So what I'm going to do is I am going to bring everything back. Head into object mode. And I'm just going to delete these two objects. And so I'm just going to hit X to delete and X to delete. So I'm going to select this object and shift select this object. And I'm just going to do Shift D, hit X to move just in the X direction. And I'm going to position them as closely as I can. It looks like they're not going to be in the same position when I move them this way. So this one's going to be right about there. And I'm only going to select this one. I'm going to do GX. And I'm going to move that to about here. Okay, now I just got to rotate the two around because they are facing the wrong way. So highlighting this one, I'm going to do G, Z, 180. What did I do? Not G. Try R, Z, 180. Sorry about that. Select this one, R, Z, 180. There we go. Okay, so now this is going to be left front wheel. And this one's going to be called left rear wheel. There we go. And we'll bring back the steering wheel. There we go. So it's not exactly art. And yes, we could add textures and stuff, like put a number or something like that on the front of the car. That's a subject for another day. For today, this is just a decent start. Okay, so in order to save this for import into Unity, we do not want a camera or a light. So I'm going to have to make sure I select these, and I'm going to delete them. So I'm going to right-click, delete. Same with the light, right-click, delete. It's actually okay if you have them in the file, but we really just want only the actual car in this scene. That would be the ideal. I'm also going to want to delete our two reference images. We don't really need those anymore. So actually I can just delete this. And I still have another reference that I apparently didn't put in there. There we go. Okay, so just checking to make sure we've got all the right objects. We've got the two axles, we've got the four wheels, we've got the steering wheel, we've got the body. Everything looks pretty good. Okay. So anyway, now we're going to save, Control S. Alright, and we're also going to export. So I'm going to pick export from the file menu here. I'm going to go to FBX. Actually, it is possible to import blend files in Unity, but this way actually allows us to export it in a way that doesn't require any special add-ons to Unity. So we can click on Export FBX, and we'll save it. And even though we're not going to do really anything with it, let's open up our empty project from last time in Unity, and we'll just pull this in real quick. So we have this Kart Racer project from last time. It just had a default cube in it. We're going to drag in our object just to see how you do that. Okay, so I'm going to navigate to Kart Racer here. Whoops. Kart Racer models. So we have this one. It's called Basic Kart Tutorial. That's the one that we want right there. So we'll just shift this aside, and I'm going to drag it right down here into the assets. Okay. I'm not going to do, let's get rid of this cube. We're not going to do anything too extreme today in Unity, but I am going to select this object, and over here you can see if I click on the Materials tab, there's a button here to extract the materials. So you can see we've got a whole bunch of these materials. We've got our two axles, we've got tire and all that stuff. All the materials that we wanted, they're all right now empty. So if we drag this in, it's just going to be a bunch of gray surfaces. If I click on Extract Materials, it's going to say, okay, it's going to load in the FBX file and save everything as in the format that Unity uses. So I'm going to click on a new folder here and create a folder called Materials. And I'll create another subfolder inside that folder called Basic Kart, which is the name of our object. And then I'll click Select Folder, and it will create all of those materials inside that folder. And you see it fills out all this. So now if I drag Basic Kart into my scene, you can actually drag it this way if you want to. But I'm just going to, actually let's just drag it here, that's fine. And you see that it adds it into our scene. So now we actually have our cart in our scene. So some of the materials look a little weird. They're not perfect. Maybe some of the objects that we've got are not quite right. And you know, the lighting is not the best. We can adjust that, by the way, by just clicking this. So for example, I could change the intensity of this to something like 2.5. And even though that doesn't look very good in the game, it does allow us to see our car, check out our materials and stuff. So anyway, there we go. So you can see there's our car. Looks pretty good. This is a directional light. We don't have any ambient light in this scene. So if you look at this directional light, you can kind of see it's pointed kind of this way. And so that's why we're all in shadow onto this side of the car. Don't worry about the material being incorrect there. That doesn't seem to be the case. Can't see inside those wheel wells, but we duplicated them from this side, so it's probably fine. You can move this light anywhere. This is like an infinite light source. It's always going to point in that direction. But if you do want to mess around with it, just by the way, I want to mention one quick thing. In Blender, the Z axis is up and down. You can see in Unity that the Y axis is up and down. But we have kind of a gizmo pretty similar to the one in Blender. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this Y section here. I'm going to hold the left mouse button, and this will allow me to rotate our light around. So this will allow us to look in different directions and see what those materials look like. Okay, they actually look kind of like garbage, but it's possible for us to go in, if we double click on the directory where we created these, for example, the body, and we can change all of these values. So for example, I can change this to a metallic value, that kind of thing. Okay, so it's possible for us to do a bunch of stuff. Okay. Anyway, so that's a pretty good start. So I will save this project. I'm going to create a GitHub repository, and this object will be in there along with the rest of our project. This is just a sample scene right now. We haven't really done anything interesting with it, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to unpack all of this geometry, and we're going to create a basic controller so that we can, use the cursor keys and the joystick and so on in order to rotate the wheels and make this thing move around. But that's something that we'll do next week. All right. So I'll see you guys next time. Hope you had fun. Here's a challenge I want to issue to you between now and next week. Now that you have the basics, I want you to use the skills that you've learned in Blender to either create a brand new object using the same techniques, maybe a different cart, maybe some other kind of object, some props, things like trees, stop signs, that kind of stuff, finish line, checkered flag, that kind of thing. Or take this object and modify it into something else. Maybe make a copy of it, and maybe make a monster truck version or something like that, or maybe make a motorcycle, scooter type object. So let's see what you can do. I'm going to create a Twitter hashtag. So we're just going to do hashtag experiments in CS. Post a picture or a GIF or whatever of your model on Twitter using the experiments in CS hashtag, and I will check them out. All right, so see everybody later.